So we've covered what makes a good profile. So we've built a profile. How then would we go about networking and beginning to build contacts? So go back to the example of a student again. Majority of my contacts probably other students, maybe lecturers and a few people I've worked with. How can I begin to network effectively and approach people who are outside of my network?
It's a great question, that. I think two things I'd do. One would be to use groups. And groups are a fantastic place to start integrating yourself into a community of a place where you are going to want to end up working. And it'll do two things for you. One, you'll really learn a lot from it, right? So, actually spending time just observing, to be honest, as much as anything else. Just go into a group and just listen to it or read what they're talking about. It's fascinating, and you'll gain all kinds of insight, even if it's just terminology, to be honest. But you'll gain all kinds of insight into what that is all about. Secondly, you'll get the opportunity to actually engage with people and then connect with them and start building your network. Building your network is often underestimated by people, and it's massively important. And I always think back in my career, and I massively underestimated the importance of a network. And I think it was only once I got to about the age of 30 that kind of dawned on me that this is actually pretty important, isn't it? And you start realizing that, things start to happen because you know a lot of people. And so you've got to start working at that. You start with the people that you know. You start with friends and family. You start with people that you know at uni. You start with lecturers. Great. Then, you grow from there. And groups is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is look at the people that you are connected to and look at who they're connected to. And then start potentially asking for introductions to those people. If they're, you're not going to do that for everyone, but you might look at, you might find someone that you're connected to and see that they're connected to people that you think are highly relevant to your career aspirations, your job aspirations. So why not ask them to introduce you, either through LinkedIn or not? But if they know that person, that's a potential opportunity for you. And start getting used to the idea that the way business works, always has done, always will do, is people know people, and people will introduce people to people. And you need to start doing that. You need to start working that system. And LinkedIn's a great place for that, because connections, who people know, is now visible to you. It never used to be. It used to be, when I first started out in work, I used to say to people in a sales role, I used to say to people, who else would be, useful for me to contact? Who do you know that you think would benefit from our services? And it's not a bad question. But the reality is I was asking them to think on my behalf. Why should they think of someone for me? But there's no other way of getting that information without it coming from them. Whereas LinkedIn, one of the best things about LinkedIn is it just tells you. It's telling you that this person is connected to this person. Chances are they probably know them. They might not, so you need to check that. But they might know them. And if they do, then just ask them to introduce you. Easy, really, when you think about it.
No, definitely. And say in that situation there where you're being introduced through someone or you're contacting somebody cold, what's the best way to do it? I mean, the standard way is you see lots of people I get lots of invitations with, LinkedIn user would like to connect with the name, or hi, I'd like to connect, and you just think, I don't know this person. Who are they? Delete. What is the more effective way to do it?
Well, so there's two sides to this, really, or two stages to this. The first stage, if we're talking about connecting, then I was more talking about, actually building your network and introducing yourself first. So you can do that in a number of ways, either, off LinkedIn, right, so on the phone or whatever, or through a group. So if you're in a group and you find somebody, then you can send them a direct message free of charge. You don't have to buy InMail or anything like that through the group, as long as you find them in the group. So you find them, search them in the group under the members tab, and then you can send them a message. But if you've been involved in the same discussion in a group, you don't necessarily need to do that. But what you then do is you invite them to connect and refer to the recent engagement. So an example would be, I found this person in a group. They look interesting to me. They're maybe, fairly senior in the kind of organisation that's one of the companies that I'd like to work for. So I'm going to approach them. I'd like to approach them. I'm not going to approach them and say, hey, have you got any jobs? Right? Not good. Don't do that. What I'm going to do is I might approach them and say, hey, look, I just thought I'd reach out to you. I'm a graduate looking for my first opportunity in X, Y, and Z. I wonder if you could offer me any advice and help. Now, that's different, right? Now, if they've got a vacancy, they'll probably suggest that you apply to that. But if they haven't, they may suggest there's people that they could introduce you to, or they may not, but they may give you some interesting tips and advice. You'll find actually one of the only times in your career where people will happily, openly give you lots of advice is when you're a graduate looking for your first job. It's relatively easy at that stage. I do a lot of workshops with people 10, 20 years into their career, and I talk to them about this technique, and they go, well, it's a bit easy when you're a graduate. It's much harder now, which is probably true, but it still can be done. But certainly as a graduate, you'll find that people, on LinkedIn particularly, because it's a networking community, they'll definitely help you if you ask, but you have to be brave enough to just ask for help, right? So I would take that approach. And then however you've engaged with them, whether that be on LinkedIn, off LinkedIn, through a group or whatever, once you've engaged with them, then connect with them, right? Because if it just, as you rightly said, we all get invites out of the blue from someone we've never heard of, some random person who just suddenly sends me an invitation to connect. Well, why would I say yes to that? Now, some people would, but a lot of people wouldn't. And so you just don't want to take that gamble. Engage with them first, and then as your second point of contact, ask them to connect.